Okay, hello all. Welcome back. I have been doing this for the last couple of nights, which is just to go over the spreadsheet that I've been keeping to keep track of the coronavirus growth trends. This one won't take long tonight because it's looking slightly better, and by better I mean not catastrophically bad, I guess. So let's just get into it. And first, I think I'll start in just some of the countries because I just did the update for the individual countries just then. And if we look at the United Kingdom, they've had confirmed cases. Their total confirmed cases are up to 4,000, over 4,000 now. So they had quite a lot of confirmed cases today. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing because that means that their testing might have scaled up as well. And it could only be potentially a bad thing in another 14 days or 1 or 2 weeks once the people that have tested positive either recover or don't make it. So their deaths are down a little bit today. So they've had 40 deaths compared to 66 yesterday. So this is quite, and looking at the percentage, you can see the fluctuation there. I don't think there's enough. This is what I've been reinforcing the last few days with the individual countries, apart from Italy, Iran, and China. I don't think there's enough data to actually get good use of these deltas, these growth, these percentage trends yet. Apart from maybe the WHO rate, which doesn't really tell us much anyway, because that just checks that's just the CFR on the confirmed number of confirmed versus the fatalities. So US tells a similar story, I think, because they have slightly less than yesterday, but yesterday they had like the most by a lot. So the US has got almost 20,000 people in there now that have been confirmed. But their deaths are also down. So 44 today versus 82 yesterday. And you can see, so a lot of the deaths growth here, just like that's going to go up and down, I think a lot in these early days. And maybe it'll just go down permanently. But if it gets into from what I noticed with China, once it's sort of crept up into, past the 1,000 mark, then that's when it got significantly a little bit more routine or more predictable anyway, I guess. So let's just go over Italy and South Korea. So I haven't gone over South Korea yet, but that was actually significant for a while there. But they haven't been increasing as rapidly as what they did in the early days. Ignoring that March 1st figure, you can see they're in double figures there at least. But then it's the last probably 10 days or so have been in like the range of, around 1% or less. So they seem to have it under control at the moment. And getting into Italy, and this is obviously the heaviest affected country right now in the world now that the number of deaths has surpassed China as of yesterday. So they had another over 600 deaths added today. So their pattern is starting to tell us something now. It's decreased slightly by percentage yesterday, but increased today. It's still consistently around 15 to 20%. Their confirmed cases are kind of relatively consistent as well, or even more so. So 14.9% yesterday versus 14.5% today. And then overall for the global figures currently, okay, so this is looking a little better, but it's still, the day hasn't finished yet. I'm staying up a little bit later these days, so I don't normally get to bed till like midnight or after. And I usually just try to update my figures at the end of, close to midnight as I can, Eastern Standard Time, which is Toronto or New York time, for people that are in like Canada or the US. So these numbers get updated about then. And it's about almost 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, so I'll probably update these in the next 2 or 3 hours as well. But currently, the confirmed growth is relatively about the same. It's probably looking like it's going to be the same percentage-wise, even though it's just, by raw numbers, it's still the most we've ever had at 29,637. So that's taking our numbers up past 275,000. So the number of deaths, that's well over 10,000 now. That's up to 11,433. And it's an incremental change, about almost the same yesterday, just a little bit over, even though the percentage is down. Now, I'm not sure. Maybe that'll go up in the next 2 or 3 hours, like I said. But currently it's down a little bit lower. But it hasn't changed. The recovered death rate still continues to go up. That's up to 11.3% today. And the WHO death rate is the same. It's 4%. Sometimes when I've been updating these numbers today, it's been at 4.1% because it is compared to confirmed cases. But yeah. And incubation death rate is up a little bit as well, 10.1. So some numbers are down, some numbers are up. So that kind of sums up most of today. Now, to get into some things that have caught my attention on Reddit and Twitter. So one of them is, this is the coronavirus subreddit that I've mentioned a couple of times. It's got 1.4 million members now. It's mainly an extension of the Reddit corporation because they try to promote it as much as possible. And I think it's gotten a little bit overwhelming now with 1.2 thousand comments. But it is also heavily regulated and moderated, which is what I've been getting at in the last couple of days. So it's not the best place to go for discussion. But it's usually has all the articles posted there anyway. But they also get posted in the other subs. But right now, this in my feed this morning, this article about more Costco employees have tested positive for the coronavirus days after another co-worker died from the disease. So this caught my attention. And if we read a little bit more into this, we find out that this incident, or the main sort of positive testings, have happened in Washington, which is kind of like the epicenter of the breakouts in the States. So this first comment here just alludes to that, just from reading it. If I'm interpreting the article correctly, these infected employees are at the corporate office in King County, Washington. And then somebody else says that they work... Oh, yeah. So this person says, yes, it is. I work for Costco, and I'm very irritated by how our CEO has gone about this. After the original employee passed, Craig, the CEO, told the remainder of the travel department employees to go across the street and help at the Issaquah, sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, warehouse without being tested. Extremely frustrating. So this is a path, I think there's a pattern that we're seeing a lot in CEOs, whether Elon Musk has been guilty of this with Tesla, and now this CEO of Costco, and there's a couple of others that have come to mind that have been exposed on Twitter in the last few days, but a lot of them have been exposed as not really valuing human lives and just thinking about maintaining their operations. And, just goes to show how much they think about how expendable our lives are. So just watch out if you're going to be exploited by any companies. Just put your life first, because they're not going to look out for you. That's what it's really, telling us most, I think. So another one that caught my attention was, I live in Italy. This was started by someone in the subreddit China Flu. So somebody's saying, I live in Italy and I'm really fed up with Elon Musk spreading misinformation. The number of deaths in Italy has doubled to 3,400 in the last 5 days. China is still enforcing a partial lockdown. South Korea and Singapore have an aggressive tracking system and strong containment measures. So this resident here is really just expressing frustration. And I think this is actually a link to Twitter. So I probably... Oh, it's going to open my Twitter app. So I probably should have opened up the Twitter thread of this. Oh, this is Jason Calacanis. Interesting. And Elon Musk is actually in this thread. Okay, I haven't seen this thread before. We can get a live look into, what this thread is like without having a plastic reaction that I've been playing, that I've seen it before. So Jason, he's an investor, starts off the thread, I guess, saying something very strange has gone on with the numbers. 1, China says no new cases. 2, people running scenarios saying 10 million to 100 million dead. And he's talking about projected scenarios. 3, Italy is in chaos, but deaths are leveling out. 4, Korea, China, and Singapore are back to normal in 6 to 8 weeks. None of this adds up. Elon Musk, exactly. My guess is that the panic will cause more harm than the virus if that hasn't happened already. So he's still not really a believer, which explains why he devalues his employees' life by telling them to come into the Tesla office. So this is what I think the tweet that was in response to Elon, this is the tweet that was actually linked to in the Reddit thread. And yeah, it's this one here, actually. Yep. So he's saying, deaths in Italy are not leveling out. Stop saying incorrect things. In Bergamo, they had to call the army to take away the coffins as the local cemetery is full. Wow. I'm taking it, this is the guy that lives in Italy that, no, he's from India. Okay, I'm a little confused here. Apparently this thread is started from somebody who lives in Italy, but he linked to this tweet, which may or may not be some guy who lives in Italy, so I don't know. Okay, so yeah, that's anyway, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but that's an interesting, I think, one to check out. Another one is coronavirus doctor. Now this is actually a little bit old now, but it sort of relates to another thing that's gone around today, because in the last, I think, 2 or 3 days, the footage from spring break has actually come out about young people not really taking it seriously. So, and then a lot of the reasons behind that has come out as well. And I first read about this, about a week ago or something, because my wife and I are keen runners, so we're really extra cautious about something that might affect our lungs. And so we don't really want to get sick even if we survive, because apparently from what the studies have shown is that lungs can be permanently damaged from this virus. So that pretty much says, for me who likes to run, that probably says goodbye to running for, I don't know, some period of time, or possibly even the rest of my life. I don't know. I don't want to find out. But there's this article from the New York Post, and this was linked in the Wuhan flu subreddit. Coronavirus doctor says lung scans for young patients were nothing short of terrifying. And then a few commenters here say, Tom Hanks and his wife got diagnosed in a matter of days, but somebody replies saying that Tom Hanks is still in quarantine. So yeah, it's really a little confusing at this point. Another thing that caught my attention was that, so Bette Midler, I just grabbed her tweet because somehow this came in my feed. But I mean, it's funny when people that are heavily on one side of the political spectrum might see an opinion from someone they've written off as being on another side, and they're flabbergasted about it. Whereas, this presenter, Tucker Carlson from Fox, I mean, he's been known as sort of, I think, ebb and flow between different takes on various political spectrums before. But anyway, he's not happy that there's this greater controversy that happened today, and I think 5 in total, 5 US senators were ousted for, or have been questioned to doing possible insider trading. But I don't know, it's a little bit of a gray area. And the reason why I started the spreadsheet in the first place was because I am a little bit of a hobby investor, and I just looked into it because of it affected the stock market in late January, although only by a minor way compared to the way it is today. But this, from what I can tell, it's people were saying in a meeting on January 24th that these senators sold their stocks based on private information in that meeting, saying that it's bad. But honestly, the stock market started to, so going back into that data, I don't have that data up now, but I looked at it this morning, and the Dow Jones had, I think, 5 negative days in a row where the stock dropped, where the index dropped, and a lot of stocks with it, obviously. So, and that started happening on January 21st, and that's what got my attention. January 21st, I was like, okay, whatever, it's an odd day. 22nd and 23rd happened, and it's still kind of the same thing, still kind of down days. And apparently this meeting happened on the 24th, which would have been the 4th day in a row of the stock market going down. And so I mean, just like, it's a little bit, I don't know, a lot of this stuff that you see on Twitter, you have to really take it with a grain of salt, because there's a lot of emotional reactions and people don't really know what they're talking about. A lot of times, like, people are trying to wish something to happen rather than, saying that somebody's guilty, but they're actually not, because, for instance, this time it could be that what people think is private information was actually public at the time. It was all public at the time. I know, because I was looking into it for the first time in that week of January 21st. And but it's just that most people weren't paying attention. So anyway, one of the senators was Senator Burr, and Tucker Carlson apparently calls for Senator Burr to resign and await prosecution for insider trading if he cannot provide a reasonable explanation for his actions. So maybe there was a little bit more to this. Maybe there was a bit more private information discussed behind closed doors, but still, the actual negativity, the impact of the coronavirus on China was public at that stage, so it'll be hard to prove. Okay, next up, I get this tweet by Ben Hunt. I'm angry that I have to write about the airline industry bailout, but the raccoons are looking to get their losses socialized and their gains locked in. Bailout the airlines and rank and file employees? ? You bet. But bail out Buffett and the CEOs? No way. So it's kind of happening again, I think, the similar, but this time there seems to be, thank God, a stronger reaction, pushback against that. But a similar thing, obviously anyone that was probably alive or just noticing the recession from, the collapse of 2008, would have noticed that a lot of the banks especially got bailouts at that time. The airlines also did, and the car manufacturers did, like GM and Ford. So it looks like people, I think there's a little bit of pushback about that possibly happening again. And a lot of I think some of the sentiment is being directed towards, bailouts should be focused towards the employees first rather than the C-level executives. And I think it would be great if people really shine a spotlight on that. So hopefully the same level of bailout won't happen again this time, and it will just be this big, loan or donation to mass corporations that really don't need it, and the employees are looked after more, because I think that's what needs to happen more. So Jim Cramer, the last thing I've got up is Jim Cramer is behind the street, but he's been a news anchor on Wall Street for many decades, I think. I think he was previously on, or still is maybe on NBC, but I don't know, I don't watch that. But he's the founder of The Street, which is a magazine about Wall Street and stuff like that. And he tweets he's a pretty colorful character. He tweets out some boisterous stuff, but today he said actually some pretty good useful advice. Remember, you need to re-liquefy on the way up. Cash will be valuable next downturn. So he's implying, I think from what I can tell of it anyway, I think what he's implying is that liquefy speaks on basically keeping cash or keeping things, keeping your assets like equities in a very flexible selling state, so ready to sell at any time, I guess. And he's saying basically cash will be valuable next downturn, so sit on that cash because there's going to be another downturn. And he's speaking, I think, in relation to when the stock market was going up first thing this morning, especially in yesterday afternoon. So he's saying that these things go in cycles, and it's not necessarily just going up because it's going to be this is the recovery happening now, but there's going to be a few dead cat bounces along the way. Like, it's going to go down, and then just like people will buy because it's cheaper, but that's not going to be an impression that doesn't mean that it's going to be going up consistently now. So it's just saying to sit on cash basically still. So that's my update for today, and so things are looking kind of dire, but not catastrophic, I think. But I will be updating the spreadsheet in another 2 or 3 hours, so this could be, who knows, it might have completely contradicted my opinion by then anyway. But yeah, hopefully you've seen some interesting things on Twitter and Reddit as well, and like and subscribe if you want to see more of this, and yeah, tune in about tomorrow evening. I'll be trying to do this every night for a while. Okay, thanks.